y'all? My name is Kyla and you're watching Kay's Corner. Today I decided I wanted to talk about my creative process and how I take my thoughts and put them into reality. My creative process, what I thought, has 5. All my life I've been like, these are the 5 things that I do when I create. And I always skip over this one particular step that I'm going to talk about. So there are actually 6 steps in my creative process. That 6th one is the one that I loathe. And I think a lot of other creatives might loathe as well and see it as a negative thing. But we'll get there. So the creative process, for me, it starts with concept formation, fabric sourcing, design, pattern making, and then construction. And then that 6th step that I was forgetting is rest. Okay, so concept formation for me is the process of taking an idea or an inspiration and building upon it so that I can reach the final design. Whenever I get inspiration or get an idea, it can literally come from anywhere. And it can be a cow walking in the yard, you know, and I'm like, oh snap, I can come up with a rodeo show outfit. Me personally, my advice is to go and live your life. If you lacking in inspiration, you're not having any fun. You're not having any fun, or you're too much in your head. And if you're too much in your head, you're not having any fun, because if you're having fun, then you ain't gonna be able to be in your head. So if you're lacking inspiration, or if you're in what some may call a creative block, there's 2 things to this, which I'm going to talk about at the end. But the first thing I would say is go have some fun. Go do something to live your life, because you will most likely get some inspiration from that fun. That's how you find some inspiration. Now, how do you build on it? How do I build on it? I use mood boards, which I think most people know about mood boards. My favorite mood board of them all, Pinterest. So Pinterest is where I go next usually. In my case, I have Barbie, right? That's my concept, that's my idea, that's my inspiration. So now, boom, I'm going to hit up Pinterest and I'm going to start researching pretty much. I'm going to start researching old Barbies and how they look. I'm going to start researching different time frames that I want to take inspiration from. For me, I usually take a lot of inspiration from the 70s and the 80s. So maybe I'll type in 70s Barbie or 80s Barbie, or I'll type in 80s glam punk. You know what I mean? I'm going to type in things that are going to help me catch a vibe of where I'm trying to go. I'll be saving pictures, and then I use Procreate. This is how I made this. I use Procreate, and I drop all of those pictures into Procreate, and I start to make a collage. And most of the times, personally, I get pictures of aesthetics rather than getting pictures of actual fashion design. But I also do look up fashion design images on Pinterest as well, because sometimes I'll have this idea in my head that I need to see it so that I can understand how it's even gonna happen. Sometimes I see things in my head and I'm like, I don't even know how to make that. And after I've created a mood board, I also like to do a brain dump. And I do brain dumps in general. Like if it's the beginning of the week and I gotta figure out what I gotta do for the week, I'm brain dumping. I brain dump everything. I just spill it all out of my head so that I can reference it for the next part of the journey, which the next part of the journey is fabric sourcing. So we've done with concept formation. We got the idea. Okay, what fabrics are we going to give to make this idea pop? So next, with fabric sourcing, for me personally, with Scrap That, I take all of the fabrics that I already have in my possession. I have not bought fabric for any other reasons besides a custom order. So all of the fabric that I have right now, trust me, I've had it for years. I have an accumulation of fabric for 8 years. That's how long I've been sewing. Well, this is the 8th year. So 7 years of fabric accumulated. Have a lot of fabric is what I'm saying. This is just one bin. I was going to bring another in some of the others, but I'm not going to do that today. Just so you can see. In this bin here, I have lots of different fabrics. So what I like to do is, once I got that idea, I'm digging through the fabrics and I'm like, okay, so for example, with the Barbie theme, I need to find all my pinks and purples. That's what I want to go for. I can go for other colors with Barbie, but Barbie's known for pinks and purples. So I was like, I'm going to go dig through my stuff and find all the pinks and purples that I can. And a lot of times I'm surprised by how much I have. Like when I was pulling out this, I was like, dang, how do I have this much pink and purple fabric? I didn't even realize I had this much. So fabric sourcing allows the ideas to start solidifying, I would say. So yeah, sure, I can think of a Barbie idea and it's some grand ball gown, right? But do I have the fabric for that? You know, for me personally, do I have the fabric already in my position to make a Barbie glam gown? Fabric sourcing will help me decide that. No, I do not. But, you know, in a regular, if I was fabric sourcing just outward and not, you know, in my own possession, it would be, okay, I want to make a Barbie fashion gown. Then let me go find ball gown materials that would be perfect for a Barbie fashion. So that's where fabric sourcing comes in at on both ends. Also, like I said, once you get to see what fabric you have to see how much of the fabric you have. So boom, like maybe as soon as I saw this fabric, I was like, "Ooh, this is so cute. I want to make this, and this." Then I open it up, and it's not even a yard. It's a quarter. It's a quarter with some scraps hanging off of it. So being able to pull out the fabric and see, okay, this is what I actually have in my position. No, you can't make that ball gown idea. Moving on to the third step. The third step is the design portion of it. And we're going to talk about that. So designing for me is doing the sketching, picking out what sketches work, picking out what sketches don't work. How about this? I sketch dump and then I pick a team. That's what I do during the design part. So I just dump out all the design ideas that I have, and then I say, okay, well, which of these designs is getting on the team? Like, which one of these designs am I actually going to bring to reality? All right, so I'm back. Of course, it's a new day because I got on new clothes. But I left off talking about the design steps. And, of course, throughout me trying to figure out what designs am I actually going to use, this is my sketch time. So when I say I'm designing, I'm sketching. Yes. So, for example, let's take these. These are crochet tops that I was showing. Now, you see I drew 5 of these crochet tops, but I actually only did 4 of these colors. And I actually did them in different ways. You know, like even in the big fashion world, you're not going to take 20 designs to your person, you know, to your manufacturer and be like, hey, I want all 20 of these. No, because to be honest, all 20 of these are not going to be the most profitable, you know, so I have to figure out which designs do I think are the best. So yeah, I'm going to move on because, again, there's not much to the designing part of it. And let's talk about pattern making. Pattern making. So pattern making is probably a love-hate part of the journey because pattern making is probably the hardest for me. 2 ways that I do pattern making. I use pre-made patterns the most because these help me to get the fit better, especially since I don't have, you know, some sample model standing in my house besides me, you know, standing in my house to be like, hey, can you try this on so I can make sure it fits right? The only samples I have is Madame Violet over there, which she's a bit naked, so you can't, I don't want to put her on camera. Violet, and then my dress form, which is something you can actually like put pins in and do a bit of draping. Pattern hacking, which I posted a video on this. You should go and watch it. I'm going to try to make more pattern hacking videos because that's how I get around, you know. That's how I get through making a whole lot of things, by taking these commercial patterns, pattern hacking them so that they can become something new. And I use this paper. It's just regular shipping packing paper. These are all the patterns that I have, and I actually have them organized like kind of like I guess a library almost. But yeah, so I have up here, it starts with jackets, and then I go into tops. So you know you have to see all the tops that I have. Listen, I have a lot. And then back here you see I have vintage dresses, and then I have summer style dresses. And then I have tops and pants. Pants and shorts. That's pattern making. Pattern making, like I said, is probably the hardest part of the journey. It's probably the part that like halts me into procrastination because I'm just like, I don't know how to make it. I don't know how to make it. But for me, what I've started doing, if you are a fashion designer and pattern making is also hard for you, start to simplify the shapes that you're going to be making. For example, start with a square. You know, if you're trying to make a top, right? If I'm trying to make a top, picture this as a full square. If you start with a square and then you think about a body, boom, you know. Look at this side. You start with a square. Fire. And then they said, oh, well, the neck curves, so I'm going to put a curve here. And then the armhole curves, so I'm going to curve it right there. And then, yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's really all pattern making is. Also, you should buy you some grid paper. People use it for quilting. Well, grid graph paper. You know, if you don't remember back in grade school, graph paper was a thing when we started learning about, you know, the graphs. It just makes it easier to lay out your shapes onto graph paper, in my personal opinion. That's why real pattern paper has dots on them, I believe, because it just makes it easier to have those dots to connect all the lines, keep it in the right sway. Okay, so the next step, which I was about to say is the last step. Here I go again, forgetting the last step that really is supposed to be the last step. But anyways, construction. Construction is, of course, the construction of the actual garment. So I have figured out the design. I have come up with the patterns to cut out the fabric. So cutting out the patterns from the fabric is part of my construction. I don't call that my pattern making. That's my construction. So I'm cutting out those fabrics, and now I'm about to sew it all together. I don't really have much to say about construction. I would consider it somewhat the easiest part of it, depending on what I'm making. Like when I'm actually sewing it together, like once you get to that step, it's like, baby, I'm going. Like I'm just, there's not much else to think about after you get to construction, depending on what you're sewing, because you have some things that are like highly constructive. Like take this jacket, for example. This jacket has a lot of seams. It has a lot of, it has pockets. It has buttonholes. Got a lot of things that require top stitching. So constructing this versus constructing this, two totally different time spans. So as far as how long construction will take, depends on what I'm making, and it also depends on if I've made it before. All right, so to all my creatives out there, and anybody, to be honest, rest. Rest is the final and first step, to be honest, the first and final step of the creative process. It's the first and final step of your day. It's the first and final step of healing. You know, if you went to the doctor, they tell you get some rest, sleep it off, you know? So rest is the most important part of the creative process. Rest is something this year that I had to really honor. And the reason I say this is because if you don't rest, your brain, what is your brain going to think of? Nothing. Like, it's going to be too tired to think. It's going to be too tired to be creative. I really want to stress the rest portion of the creative process, because what I've also noticed is that creativity is a ebb and flow. So you're not always going to be creative. Nobody's always creative. Like, nobody's pumping out nothing 100% of the time. You're going to have your creative spike, and then you're going to have the decline, so that you can rest your brain. Like, being a creative is mental exhaustion. Well, it can lead to mental exhaustion very easily. I don't think people really realize it, but that's something that I've noticed. A lot of times when I'm sewing, even though I'm sitting down all day, I'm using my brain all day. And when you're running in your brain on how to do something, what ideas to come up with, and you haven't gotten any rest, or you haven't been resting, guess what? You're gonna be lost, you know? You're not gonna have the answers. Maybe in your rest period, you go have some fun. Like I said at the beginning, you go have some fun while you're resting, so that that new inspiration can spark. Bow. And now we got a circle of life. Okay? So get you some rest. let your creativity do what it needs to do. So to sum it all up, my 6-step creative process starts with rest and ends with rest, but it also includes concept formation, fabric sourcing, designing, pattern making, and construction. So make sure you're getting some rest. Make sure you honor your creative process, because you're you. You're not Beyonce. You know, maybe Beyonce can push herself to the limit, and we all can do that. But Beyonce's creative process, or Rihanna's creative process, or whoever you're watching, even me, my creative process may be different from yours. And I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know if you like these kinds of videos. If you want more of these, I'm going to create more of them, but I would like some feedback. So thank you for watching. My name is Kyla, and you are watching Kay's Corner.